Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. I hope everyone's having a great start to your day. I have the legend himself, Big Beat, in the house today. How are we doing today, Big Beat?
Good morning, Howard. Yesterday was upbeat day, and today not so good, right? The pullback. Once again, it's tariff talk. So, that's why I'm saying I'm not in this market. I'm staying with long Nvidia, which is seeing a little bit of a pullback today. As you know, I sold 98,200 on Bitcoin, and it got 98,000, and right back down it went. So, I'm not liking this market, and I'm sticking around and staying out of it. I'm just sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. You and I have been talking all morning. If we just start with the SPY and QQQ, they basically have done a half back mean reversion from where they were yesterday, right? I pointed out another one that was interesting. Let me share my screen here. I pointed out that Archer, which is an aviation company, yesterday announced they were raising a bunch of money because they got a new government contract producing EVTOLs, which are very important to our Defense Department. Yesterday, up 13.08%.
Yep.
Today, down 10.39% with no new news.
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, I'm not touching this stuff. It just seems like this is just playing around, and I don't like playing around. I like knowing what I'm doing, and I'm not seeing anything right now.
Yeah, and I'd point out the same thing. I brought it up yesterday when PDD took off, right? Temu's parent company and Bob and all those took a big jump. You went up yesterday 1.81%, down over 2% here this morning. My big takeaway, everybody, is there's money to be made in this volatility, but you need to be very quick to take profits. And I would be looking to be mostly neutral at the end of trading sessions. That's not normally how I trade, but I'm definitely trading the market differently. I know you are, and that's never how you really trade. So that's why I'm warning people. This is a big change in the market. This is something you want to be talking about. Almost all of our guests yesterday, especially Mark Petrino, talked about it, right? Preserving your wealth is a big part of what you need to do in markets like this.
And you've got too many unknowns right now. You've got Powell's testimony on Wednesday, and he's going to take a big beating from Congress, especially the Republican side. He's gonna sweat a little bit. He's gonna wear that purple tie and sweat a little bit. He's gonna come in there, and they're not gonna give him any leeway. They're gonna be really rough on him. I know that the new Secretary of Treasury, is saying we're not really telling him to lower rates, but everybody else in Washington's gonna tell him, right? And I think that's the case. So, Washington and New York are not getting along too well just yet. They don't really know what the case is. While they're smiling about the Republican administration and the business side of things, and they love the fact that they're cracking down on waste and spending in D.C., they're really not sure what he's going to say. They're not really sure what the president's going to say. He came back out in tariffs again, 25%, and here we go. UK said we're going to come right back. EU said we're going to come right back and give it right back to you. That's not a good talk, right? Tariff talk is not good, even if you're just using it as a bully pulpit. So here we go. We're gonna see that all day long. So I'm not liking this market. I haven't liked it for a couple of weeks now, and so I've been on the sidelines.
I do know one market that you are liking is gold. Gold hit fresh highs, as I'm putting up here on the screen. 29.42, almost got to the 29.50 mark, but then rejected there. A couple of things I saw on gold or thought there is, number one, it's strong right now, right? It's showing you everything you need to know about the rest of the market, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at commodities, all of the normal commodities are starting to push up, right? Oil is pushing up, nat gas now at 378, gold, silver. I mean, silver coming just a little bit, but no, I don't like this money. And we talked about that with Steve yesterday, Steve Flanagan, that asset classes are moving around too fast right now, where people are looking for alpha way too fast. If they're having to go in the junk bonds, then there's a problem, right? Then they're not quite all there. So yeah, most definitely, I'm not liking this market. I'm sitting.
Well, and you can see, like I said, we're not the only ones that are only staying in the market quickly and moving out, like you just said. We're seeing institutions who normally this isn't their style either, that are really changing. I did want to talk about, we had both Peter Thomas on last week. the man when it comes to talking about metals. And then yesterday with Mark Petrino, we talked about gold and what's going on in China. And I had an interesting one. It shows you how quickly things are moving. Blue Hat, which is an ADR of a Chinese company up here. BHAT is their symbol. Up 37% today, up like 25% yesterday. They bought 1 ton of gold. And you brought up the importance of this, right? That wasn't normally allowed in China. Is that correct?
That's correct. You're not allowed to do that. And they when they release that to the public, that public both not only companies can do it, but the average citizen can actually do it. That makes me, I'm just like, what is that, right? What is Blue Hat that, it reminds me back in the day when Long Island Iced Tea was buying Bitcoin, right? When it was .com and it was all kinds of wild things. So, okay, let's go then. Blue Hat Interactive Entertainment. Let's.
Well, so Blue Hat basically in China is what they do is they're a market. They're now selling spot gold.
Yes.
So they are an algorithmic trading company that basically is buying spot gold on the market, bringing it to China. And then now they're the first ones to sort of be disseminating it out into that, the individuals that are trying to buy it. So
right. I mean, they are the distributor for augmented reality, toys.
All kinds of things. So they're treating it as a collectible almost, which is a little scary that they're almost this collectible company is going to be in charge. There, I think it's interesting because I think it's going to be a complete switch for that company. I don't know
if they're buying gold as in physical gold and they're going to smelt it and they're going to melt it down and they're going to make toys out of it, trinkets. Yeah, I can totally see that. Why not? Good for them.
And for a shift, because again, I think it caught people by surprise when China opened this up, because it really does go against almost everything that a communist party would have, holding wealth that they can't easily, they can easily seize it, but is interesting there. But I think it just goes to show more to me that the strength of that gold is going to see. I have become a gold bug, definitely here. You mentioned oil moving up here again. You called almost exactly what was going to happen there over the last couple of days. You see WTI and Brent now, Brent coming close to that 78 you predicted yesterday, already at 76, 75. Did not take long there.
You're seeing sanctions again, right? You're seeing the UK pull back from nat gas, and that means they're going to go to oil. So here we pull the oil out. For those of you who don't know the difference, WTI is West Texas Intermediate coming out of Texas, obviously, and Brent coming out of Brent North Sea crude. It's the reason it's more expensive because it costs more to drill it out of the ground, right? Because you're in the middle of the North Sea and you got on the platforms, whereas West Texas, it's right there in the ground. You just got to dig a hole. And that's the difference, right? And also light sweet crude is a little different where the crack spread is. If you don't know what the crack spread is, that's for people that what the difference of what it costs between the difference of pulling it out of the ground, right? The crack of the actual barrel, the different things you can put into it. And the crack spread is widening a little bit. And that's a little bit concerning to me.
Okay. That one is one that I was not that familiar with there. But we see that. You mentioned nat gas moving up. I will mention we see the VIX up about 2.78% today here. Again, we talked about it when it was down in the low 16 yesterday. That was definitely something to look at. If it broke below 16, it did get to 1590. Now it seems like it's starting to pull back up. I think volatility is rising without a doubt. Advanced decline right now down about 949. That's a little bit, I will say, we're seeing a little bit of uncertainty because that's like a little bit of what I call no man's land. The reason being more than that amount of stocks don't trade pre-market. So that number could be negative or positive at the open. And as we know, algorithms change based upon what happens at the open. So we'll see how that plays out here. It could give us a little bit of a false start here. So that's why I bring it up. Whenever it's within about 1200, I think there's more uncertainty at open. I think you need to be a little bit more careful because you could see a false signal out of the first few ticks before things sort of catch up there. So keep an eye on that. Overseas overnight, Steve, Nikkei and Shanghai Composite both down. The one that I've been surprised at showing strength is the stocks in the face of these tariffs seem to be, holding up pretty well. Do you think that means that they think, that maybe it is rhetoric, maybe it is the bully pulpit still over there, more so than what we're seeing in Asia? I mean, because that's what it's saying to me, I guess, the markets.
When you look at the market overall, from whether it's Asian markets, in this case, for me, I think the big one here there is India right now is moving, and then you look at it from the perspective of Europe and this perspective of us, right? I want to see all of the markets move in tandem, right? When we look at China overnight, is China markets moving up? Is the Nikkei moving up? Great. That gives a portents to what we're happening to us. We're not seeing that. There's a big disconnect, right? Especially if Trump is talking about tariffs in a country, all of a sudden those markets get wonky and the volatility go up. I'm not following all the markets as if they're all in tandem. I think it's a stock pickers market. It's a index pickers market, and that makes it even harder for us. So right now, I think it's for countries and companies that seem to be in the AI business or in tech. I think it's the ones that are in commodities, and I think it's ones that are not affected by the US dollar as much when you're overseas. So think of it like, look at BP. BP, British Petroleum, is getting hit hard, right, over that, because it's not only the Brent price going up, but it's also BP in general, right? So what happened the other day? BP took off because nat gas was a problem. So all of a sudden in UK, they know they're going to have to switch over to oil. So guess what? That's what BP does. So that's why the stock took off yesterday, right? It's been beaten up quite heavily. Now the stock's at 34, 42. This is a stock in the upper 20s. It just took off. Now all of a sudden this thing could go all the way back up in the 40s, 45s, because that's what they're going to do. Kaboom, right? That's what I mean. Affected by the dollar, affected by commodities, affected by the president. So, and it's an international stock, British Petroleum. So that's what I mean. Buying stocks that are not just U.S., you could have an ADR, American Depository Receipts, meaning that they're an international company in our country, or use an account that has access to other countries' accounts.
Well, and you also could use MCSI. I know you've shown some of those ETFs that cover, the different areas of global. They cover a lot of the different sectors too. For those of you that are looking for a way to get that, as Steve mentioned, ADRs. I pointed it out recently in the bank sector. I am a person who's looking at SMFG, which is one of the huge trading companies, Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Corp, in Japan, one of their major trading houses, which is more like a Blackstone or a BlackRock here in the United States. USB is one, right? That's a foreign country. You've always liked ING over the years, Steve. So there's a way to get access to a lot of these different areas, through different stocks here, even in the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. I did want to point out, Steve, we had a couple of things. You are my man when it comes to talking about the healthcare department, pharmaceuticals, as your family. You grew up with that sort of going on. Did you see LIPO? Again, folks, LIPO, Lapella Pharmacy, up about 50% today. They have had a great breakthrough with their LP310, which is showing strong safety and efficiency in treating oral lichen planus. It helps with pain, ulceration, and inflammation reduction. It showed no serious adverse events, and they are now going to plan their FDA submission for the second half of this year, up about 49%. And then the one that I thought was even more exciting was Ocean Biomedical, OCEA. They have actually unveiled an immunotherapy that boosts TKIs that reverse drug resistance and lung cancer treatment. For those that don't know, one of the problems you have if you have cancer and they're able to put it into remission, when it comes back, a lot of times you can't use the same drugs that worked well the first time, or they lose their efficiency. And they have found a way to sort of counteract that. And Steve, as you've talked about, this is one that Merck's getting involved with, a $588 million deal. Showing the huge market potential here. Are you a buyer? Are you interested in either of these?
Merck Merck and Merck. I'm not interested in the smaller biotechs. I love biotechs that are over $1. They need to prove that they can at least do that. If they're under $1, I stay away from them. And I've been trading biotechs for a long time, 28 years, something like that, 30, almost the whole 33 years I've been trading. I can tell you right now, I don't mess with that. I have been talking about Merck in itself, MRK. I can tell you that for me, when you're a small company like that, you might get bought out, but it's a test. For those of you who don't know, I've been trading biotech a long time, and I use different markers for that. I've got about 20 different things that I use when I look for biotech stocks, small ones, and I look for things that are trying to go after cancer, going after big problems, not what they call Nobel drugs. Nobel drugs are drugs that go after very small, minute part of the country or the world that's got like a little bit of a sickness. I want something bigger, like obesity and lung disease and cancer.
Well, that's why this one for me, Ocean, is not only that, because I'm also saying to myself, okay, if they figured out how to stop it from the drug resistance from going there, have they come through with a breakthrough that they'll able to now mutate into other areas of cancer and stop the drug, resistance from coming up in those. So that for me, that's why I was wondering on this one. And you can see they already have the partner with Merck to distribute it.
Right. And I also think that the big firms are the only ones that can really afford AI to implement into the systems. I think one of my favorites is Pfizer, PFE. They're one of the biggest ones. Why do I say AI? And they're going to need quantum computing, by the way. You can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to be buying these huge machines in their systems, because it costs a lot of money for those doctors to be able to do the test, where a computer can do it 100,000 times faster than a doctor, and find those drug problems and issues and all those things a lot faster. So I do expect these companies will be finding drugs way faster, better, less side effects, all those things. So
yeah, and you're not the only one. As you know, Matthew Tuttle's been talking about that. We saw Stanley Druckenmiller talk about it. We saw Mark Andreessen brought it up, that the biggest breakthroughs for AI, I think you were at that conference when you did that at Davos, he came out and said, the biggest spot where people aren't looking at AI right now where they should be is within the healthcare. The ones that win that, like you said, they're going to lower their costs tremendously. They're going to be the first to market with the new drugs, and for those that are saying, oh no, this is like, the whole Terminator thing. No, they're going to use it to model. And then once the models come back with the figures, then they say, okay, this is the one that's most likely to be successful. Now we actually do real trials and we take it from there. Right. So definitely there. Steve, you talked about earnings. They're definitely taking place. First of all, we'll start with the earnings that haven't come yet. Today, after market, we have Gilead, SMCI, Supermicro, DoorDash, all up, and Upstart and Zillow. Any of those interest you today? I just want to see what Supermicro has to say.
You just the doors out of my mouth. SMCI, I want to see if they cleaned up their act. If they have, then I think, yes, I might change my tune on SMCI. I like SMCI. I like what the products. I think they've got good stuff. But when your accountants leave, when you are being almost asked to be delisted, I think NASDAQ did say they wanted to delist them. That's a problem, right? This is a major company with this much problems. I don't like that. So
5.78 billion in revenue.
Yeah.
I will be watching Zillow's too, just again, I want to, because they give you a good channel check for what's going on in general for houses being sold. That throughout all of the US, you get a good feel for what is going on. It's sort of like Visa for getting the channel check on retail. I like Zillow just for home builders, everything. They'll kind of give you a nice little view there. So I'll be watching that. Today, we've had some winners and losers based on earnings reports. Leidos was one of the winners here, up about 5.41%. You and I, both from the DC area, know Leidos well. They are Beltway bandits. They are folks that pretty much work just within the federal government. They work on the defense contracting side. They did have a good beat, and their stock's been pretty beat up. I've been watching over the last couple of years, because I used to live right down the street from their main headquarters. But they did show that their national security and digital had about 1.89 billion in revenue, which showed a strong digital modernization demand. They're in all different parts of the government too, health and civil. They saw a 16% increase in they're driven by the managed health services, and their commercial and international I actually saw was up about 12%. And then of course the core business being defense systems, which accounted for the majority of their money, up about 17% for revenues there. So Leidos one that is definitely seeing a strong move here. They had a $4.1 billion U.S. Army contract and a $2.6 billion TSA checkpoint deal they announced during the earnings too. So nice earnings by Leidos, and you can see they're moving up nicely so far here in the pre-market.
Yeah, and I like when I go through the airport TSA and I see their name on it, because I know that it's a lot easier for me to go
quicker, right? Yeah, I'm with you. Their machines are top notch for that. They usually have the ones, don't bother taking your shoes off, leave your belt in, just come on in, raise your arms, and
right.
call it a day.
I'll tell you another one that I like today and did earnings, and it's good old Coca-Cola, KO.
Yeah, KO. I got them right here in our earnings.
Yeah, the earnings for them were a lot better because international again, right? People drink Coca-Cola again, and their water, Dasani, did very, very well too, because of all the problems around the world. Water was needed, right? Especially in the wildfire, especially with landslides and earthquakes. They sold a lot of water. I have Dasani water outside in the garage just in case hurricanes, right? So I think they've done very, very well, and their Fairlife too as well. Another part of their system. So Coca-Cola did pretty well internationally.
Yeah, very well. I mean, organic revenue grew 14%. The other part that I took away, their price mix was increased up 9%. And it's the 11th straight quarter they've raised prices. So that's a huge one for me, because we've seen that inability for the elasticity in prices in a lot of different markets, right? Especially when it comes to food. You hit a certain price and no one buys it. Coke's been able to move that up. And I know because I'm a big buyer of Coke Zero. And, I used to be able to get it pretty cheap. And I've noticed that those deals aren't as good as they used to be. So I did think for me, that was, a pretty big thing that I was looking for, was the price mix.
Considering how sugary Coca-Cola is, I mean, I've even cut back on, I have 1 or 2 Cokes a week now. A can, that's about it anymore. I cut back, and I think that the international for them is more important than the national here for us. So to me, it's all about international growth. And that's a little bit stunted if the dollar continues to stay strong. If the dollar comes back, then I think Coca-Cola really goes up. And of course, they
would they get that effect? Because remember, Coke makes their products in those different countries within those countries usually.
They do, yes, but it also still
gets hit. I wasn't sure how that would work. That's why I was asking. Because unlike beer and booze, which is usually made in the region and then shipped out, Coca-Cola, as you know, they're mixing water, sugar, and some unnatural ingredients together. So they do that wherever.
A 3.04% dividend, so you make some money while you wait. So. That could be another thing that
I will point out, and they blew away Pepsi, which had a 2.1% growth. So
Pepsi has problems because Pepsi makes chips and things that people aren't eating right now. So I understand that. Yeah.
Also in earnings, let's talk about the S&P. We don't really think of it sometimes, but some of the bigger companies on the NASDAQ, on the New York Stock Exchange, are the actual exchange owners themselves. So SPGI, which is the S&P reported earnings here, they are up about 6%. One of the bigger moves up today. Things that I saw there, they had an EPS beat of about 30 cents, which was pretty big, 377 a share versus 347. Revenue wasn't too far off from where it was. And they're also showing a nice little forward guidance like we talked about, right, Steve? EPS of about $17 to $17.25, and a revenue growth of about 5 to 7%. So again, earnings looking good. S&P expecting growth. A lot of that probably the new ETFs we're seeing, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's all about the new ETFs, and I'll also tell you, data. S&P provides lots of data to a lot of companies, and I'll tell you that's also been a big growth place for them too as well. So, yep, 100%.
Absolutely. DuPont, another one up here this morning, looking pretty good after their earnings. a company that sort of had been down for a few years, quite frankly. And on the daily chart, you can see here got really beat up in the quarter four, moving down from about 90 to the lowest 72 before starting to bounce back here. Their key takeaways that I saw there was AI-driven semiconductor demand fuels some of their growth. They didn't realize they were really even in that business that big.
Yeah, I mean DuPont. I mean they are the chemical leader, I think, in the world, especially the processing of chemicals. We all know about DuPont paint, right? But if you look at it from the perspective of DuPont overall, they've been around a long time. They're stalwarts in the country, out of Connecticut, and this is not normal. Big, strong fourth quarter earnings surging 4%. I like it. I like it a lot. This means that U.S. companies are doing quite well. But sales of 3.1 billion. Is that the case? It's AI driven, right? It's AI driven, the picks and the shovels, right? And I think DuPont could be on the forefront of this. Yeah.
Be interesting too. They do have plans to split into two companies November 1 of this year. They're spinning their chemical away from sort of the AI. So We'll see how that all plays there. But a good beat there. So they're one of the ones that are up. Another one that you've talked about a lot recently, Ecolab, right? You talked about them for a couple of reasons that you thought maybe they were a good buy. They did have a real nice move here. Again, up about 4.7% after their earnings. Some of their number takeaways there was, again, organic sales growth up 4%, led by industrial, healthcare, and life sciences. So again, hospitals, people don't realize how much money Ecolab, makes from these hospital contracts. They're the ones that keep the pests out, make sure everybody has their gloves, their other things like that go through. They do a very good job there. They also did give their 2025 outlook, and they're looking for an adjusted EPS now of plus 12 to 15%. So again, we're seeing some of these forward earnings looking real nice so far, Steve. On the other side of that, though, on the downside, I did see two things. Marriott, which was sort of surprising here. We had seen a lot of the hotels, airlines, all of those that had strong earnings here. Marriott did not. Marriott's down about 3.4% here this morning. And they pointed to an earnings beat, but that their 2025 outlook is going to miss Wall Street expectations. If we look at their estimates, part of their problem is the U.S. again. They're seeing strong international travel demand, especially in Asia Pacific, but they're not seeing it here in the U.S. as much. And they moved down their EPS to 220 to 226 from 237, and their growth rate down now to 2 to 4.
Why? Because the U.S. dollar is expensive, and international coming over here is not doing it. They're just not coming over and spending. Right? They're just not doing it. So
we are about 2 minutes from open here. Let's take a look at the tick, see what we got. We're down about 143. Advanced decline is moving further to the negative side so far, so it does look like
I'm not scared here. I think we may just brush off this early dip here in the market. I think we may go right on up.
There you go. It'd be good to see after a strong day yesterday. Again, QQQ was up 1.21% yesterday. The SPY was up 68 basis points. We saw both a gain by the RUT and the Dow Jones also. So all four major indices were to the upside yesterday. Gold holding above 2,900 pretty nicely so far this morning. Cocoa took a pretty big jump overnight, about 3.43 to the upside there. If we look at the spider indices to see here right before open, most of them looking negative so far. The big winners are XLE, which we know is energy. We're looking at XLB, which is materials, and consumer staples are the three on the upside. But energy seems to be the major winner today. Steve, we are going to open here. I do want to talk about Phillips. Remind me to talk to you about what's going on with Elliott and activists there, and they are moving up on that talk, but we want to wait till we get right through the open here on that one. Bitcoin back below 97 here, right about 96,944. We are open here, so let's see what we get. First couple of ticks to the negative side here, down about 150. And again, we saw now the advanced decline jump to almost 3,000 to the downside. Tick moving even further to the south, down about 600 now. So the first few seconds here are a little bit of a pullback. QQQ, though, moving to the upside here on the open. So we do see a little bit of buy-in here on the 3-minute chart here on QQQ, moving up 526.48, highs of the morning. Tick still negative about 500 so far. We do see it.
There goes NVIDIA right back up. I think we talked about that, right?
The only one of the Mag 7 actually up is Apple this morning. So this is like a bizarro day. It's the opposite of what we've seen over the last few weeks. Everything down. Tesla looks like it wants to head to that 330 that I mentioned yesterday, 344 now. So yesterday was hanging at that 350, 355 level. Broke now back below that, down now to lows at 344. Again, I'm looking for that at 330 is where I would start to watch it, but it's got to get all the way down there. What is not going down too far here, Steve, is your Netflix at 1019 here.
Well, there's a big drop there in NVIDIA there for some reason. Yeah.
Bitcoin jumped up a little bit here as we've opened up now at 97,286. So looks like some of the ETFs are up. And now it's down at 96,850. It looked like some of the ETFs maybe were buying in. Doesn't look as much now. Did see a move up yesterday, Steve, by some of the alts as more talk about the ETFs. They gave some Bloomberg's ETF sort of desk gave some percentages to what they think. They said Litecoin ETFs, 90% chance of approval. Then it went to Solana, 75% chance of approval, and an XRP at 65%. So we do see XRP moving up on that news here. Cardano, same thing on an ETF talk. Cardano also talked that Elon Musk is going to meet with Charles Hoskinson, and if they do use a blockchain to track Doge, it could be Cardano, the actual winner there. Very surprised by that, although it has high throughput. And again, Charles Hoskinson has long been friends with Elon Musk. So do you see NVIDIA back up at 132.26 here? So after bouncing down all the way here to that 132 even level, it is trying to move back up. Do you see Google and Amazon turning positive? So we do see a little bit of a change on the Mag 7. Do you see the tick here is still negative? Advanced decline now at negative 33. But RUT is the big loser so far, down 0.75 or 75 basis points here. You can see a gap down right on the open. So the RUT definitely.
Hammock says sees signs of optimism that we could see inflation easing.
I'm seeing Shopify just did their earnings also. They beat on fourth quarter revenue, but gives mixed guidance. So let's see what they're doing here on that news. That is Shopify, SHOP.
If inflation is easing, that should be good for stocks. Spot gold back above 2,900 already.
Yep. And you can see nice little move up here by Shopify towards it. Just broke its all-time high here. Could get a continuation play on any move above this 124.50 here. So Shopify definitely in play here. Trying to run. Let's take a look at the ones that were moving up earlier this morning. Still seeing nice moves up by those biotechs. LiPo still up 45.9%. OCEA, Ocean Biopharm, out 46. That blue hat out of China now up 64% here this morning. So definitely running a little bit still, now at over 11 cents.
Looks like the Nasdaq's on the highs of the day here.
Yeah. Steve, I said we're going to talk a little bit about Philips. They've moved up really nicely here, about 5.51. This had been on news as Elliott Management had doubled down with a $2.5 billion stake. They are looking for a spin-off of some of the different things that Philips does, and they want to see board changes. Are you interested in Philips if they can get this change going? You can see this was
mergers and acquisitions. I think I continue to say that. I continue to say it. And look, these are companies that are big. And when you see activists like Elliott Management going after a company, there's probably a reason where, as I always say, where there's smoke, there's fire. But they're asking for board positions. They're asking for, midstream spinoffs. Could very well possibly be the case here. Is it a turnaround? No. Philips is a stalwart in the country, and it's oil. It's like ExxonMobil, Philips. They're all the same when it comes to that. They have gas stations, so one thing I like about Philips, they have everything. They do the drilling, they do the pumping, they do everything.
They refine, right? Also, they
refine. So they do it all. Yep.
Steve, here's an interesting one. We were talking about Leidos in the open, was up 5-6%, just dropped now down at 6%. Again, just this dystopian market that you can't really get a feel for. Their earnings came out late last night. Everybody sort of digested it, and now today a complete turnaround here, down almost 6% right now. So you see that move. On the other side of that, just to talk the same way, Global Foundries was down tremendously in the pre-market, down around 36. It's bounced back here to 39 pretty quickly here. It was as low as 35.85 earlier this morning. It hit a 52-week low, bouncing back up. So we just continue to see that across these.
And I said this morning that I said, look, we're going to start to see even more melting up as we start to push away the tariff talk. NVIDIA just did it. NVIDIA just went green here. So the tariff talk is a concern, but it seems that they're pushing it away. Now, we're seeing the advanced decline line down 3,400. So that will be a pressure on it on the overall markets. But the ticks are keeping up, and 108.17 on the Dixies. So if we see that slipping, we're going to be okay. Look at that. I think NVIDIA is going to stay green all day here.
Apple with a nice move up now, up 1.67% here, Steve. 231.50. Nice move up. It is a big.
IBM pushing up. I like this stuff. This is an overall market that I like. It's tech. It's AI again, right? It's what we've been talking about. It's AI. This is where the money's going into. So
definitely still stock pickers, though, as you look at semiconductors here. NVIDIA up, but then AVGO, TSM, AMD, TXN, Qualcomm, AMAT, Micron all down. Intel up, ARM up, ASML up, and NVIDIA up. So we're seeing, a definite divergence between, stock picking without a doubt.
Yep. Keep that linear
regression in place. Yeah.
Regression on your charts, because that's what the markets are looking at right now.
And what Steve's talking about here is this is the lines you see on my screen here. The top blue line coming across is the top of the linear regression. Where it goes from blue to red right here is the midpoint on the linear regression. And then you can see the bottom line here. This would be an upward facing linear regression on the daily chart for Apple. And you can see that even on the daily chart, it has respected this really well. Bounced to the top of it. Once it fell through it, it fell all the way to the bottom of the linear regression before pulling it. I use it a lot more, I would say, personally, on shorter term charts. They do a really good job of showing you that, but it is definitely that linear regression. Like you said, mean reversion. Those trades are in play across the board without a doubt still.
We could see.
Haven't been able to see NVIDIA hold above 134 yet, Steve. It briefly broke across it, but pulled back down below it. Now it's sort of right at it. That seems to be the line in the sand today so far.
Because they don't want to go run on up and finish that gap up. So they will. I think we'll continue to see right on up. I think NVIDIA is a $200 stock. I think it goes right on $200.
And this is what I'm talking about, where I like it on an hourly chart here. If you can see of NVIDIA, you can't respect a linear regression any better than you did here. Another thing I will point out on linear regression is what happens usually is you struggle to also get across the midpoint there, which would be similar to what you have in the VWAP. It's sort of the middle spot where people have gone from buyers to sellers and from sellers to buyers in the past. So it tends to be a spot there. And you can see once it broke through, it went straight to the top of that linear regression and then used it for support throughout most of the day yesterday. So Steve here calling it. It came right off the bottom, right at that 9 o'clock, and has been moving up since. So that's what you want to keep an eye on. Apple losing a little bit of momentum here, now up 1.22%. The rest of the net of the Mag 7 that had looked to go positive, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon now moving more to the negative side. So we do see some profit taking coming in here, Steve. The bears are trying to take back control. And we see the Qs up about 30, down about 33 basis points. The SPY down about 28 basis points. So NASDAQ has held up a little bit better than the SPY so far. But again, we're not seeing strength here. We're seeing a lot of weakness on the small caps. The RUT, which is the Russell 2000, down almost 70 basis points here this morning. So that seems to be where we're getting hit. Bitcoin did regain 97,000 here as we're talking. Gold dropped just below the 2,900 handle. Let's see what else is moving here.
I am starting to add platinum to my system here because, quite frankly, platinum is what we've been talking about, and there it is. Yep, 985.50. That's what the CFD is on it right now. So I am keeping my eye on platinum here.
And again, the early leaders so far today in the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 1,000, Ecolab up about 7.18%, Coca-Cola up 4.38%, DuPont up 4.14%, all three of those on an earnings beat. Phillips up 4% on Elliott Management's activist position. S&P, Cincinnati Financial Corp, and On Semiconductor all up on earnings here this morning. If we're looking to the downside, Fidelity National, who had earnings down 15% now. Leidos, who had earnings and were up almost 6% earlier this morning on their earnings, now down 5%. Marriott, we spoke about, down 4.67%. Regeneron Pharmaceuticals down 3.77%. And on the opposite side of the S&P, taken off to the upside, the CBOE's parent company, CBOE Global Markets, down about 3.6% this morning. The other one that seems to be moving negative here, SMCI, which we know reports after earnings, has been coming down a little bit here from highs of the day. It had hit 41.47, pulling back a little bit here, now down about 3.4% on the day.
I was just watching CNBC a second ago. The SNL's 50th birthday is this week, right? They're doing a show at 5 o'clock Eastern time, the SNL 50 years.
Nice. I do like them. I do have a couple of things that were not earnings based that has some stocks moving today. Walgreens, right screen here, which is WBA. There it is. Down about 2.4% here. They lost an arbitration case over the U.S. government suing them for $987 million. They lost that case. They plan to appeal, but they are down about 2.31% on that. Another one that's down on just more news than earnings, PDD, Temu's parent company, is Trump has gone after it pretty hard. They were a company that sort of tried to bypass the tariffs by sending stuff to like Mexico and then reshipping from Mexico to the U.S. That is going to get done. It was what's called a half custody model. And now factories now ship in bulk to the U.S. warehouses. Higher costs equal potential price hikes for shoppers.
Yeah.
Could be positive for Amazon. Temu is definitely one of their biggest competitors there. So could see a little bit of a move there. Again, Mag 7 not looking very strong. NVIDIA unable to really hold above that 134. It's battling right at that amount right now. Apple has pulled back, was up almost 2% here, now back up only 1%, and the other 5 are down. Biggest loser still again. Tesla has moved up. It was at 344 earlier, now up around 348. So it is rebounding a little bit here this morning.
I'm liking this a little bit. 15 minutes going into the top of the hour here. I'm liking this a little bit. We could see a little bit of more of a melt up here.
Yeah, especially with the Mag 7 right now getting hit, they tend to, when they have a bad morning, tend to get a little bit of buying into the afternoon. People start to convince themselves they're a good buy, so people start to go in. They could definitely go there. E-commerce getting hit pretty hard here today. You can see
there it is. NVIDIA highs the day. That's what I thought. I thought we'd do that. Yeah.
Banks still a mixed bag here this morning, but most of them fairly flat. JP Morgan down just slightly, just below the 271 handle. Bank of America pretty much flat on the day at 46.68. Wells Fargo at 79, fairly flat too. So the major banks in general flat. Schwab now, Steve, they got hit yesterday, as we know, after their earnings, and this is what we've talked about, right? The reversals trade has been in play. They're now up 2.24% today. They had gotten as low yesterday as 80.37. So nice little rebound here by Schwab. You said that they're a good one that you liked yesterday when they had dropped down. If you were listening to Steve, you got a nice little move there, probably about a 4% move between where they were at the lows yesterday and where they are at now. McDonald's holding up pretty well, Steve. We know they had earnings yesterday. They moved up nicely, holding up pretty well at that 308.50. So again, I'm looking for the companies that are doing that, right? We've seen so many of the mean reversions, one up, 8% one day, then down 6% the next day. So a couple of companies showing that they have legs here, McDonald's being one of them, up again slightly here this morning. So that looks pretty good to me. Not much else I'm seeing there. The other, I'll tell you what, fear of tariffs still gripping the steel industry, though. We can see Cleveland-Cliffs up another 1.9%, Nucor up 1.36%, Steel Dynamics up 1.35%, and U.S. Steel up 1.24%. Aluminum companies up even more, Alcoa up 4.31%, and Century Aluminum up 9.22%. So we continue to see strength out of steel and aluminum here in the U.S. Based on that, we'll say homeowners are up a little bit today. Lennar up 42 basis points. DHI, which is DR Horton, up 37 basis points. Pulte is pretty much flat, just slightly up at 8 basis points there. So those are up also.
$108.15 now. I think the dollar is slipping here a bit. So if that's the case, then I think you could see some another move up to the upside here.
Checking to see if anything's pumping into the top gainers on the day. Intel jumping up here at 3.92%. So Intel catching a little bit of wind here.
Tick now about 235 now. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we might just melt up. There's no data coming out, right? I mean, the only thing you got like is
today. Tomorrow we got PMI and then CPI on Thursday, jobs data. So it's pretty weak today. I think people are waiting for Powell to speak, as you talked about. A lot of folks in front of Congress the next couple of days. We'll see how that plays out.
It won't be fun for him. Let's put it that way.
See David Solomon here talking about Goldman Sachs said investors aren't giving enough credit to the investment bank's markets business. So that's interesting. I was surprised at 126
What does
million
David Solomon do? Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Tick is now jumping here now. Tick's now about, goodness sakes, almost 400 here. So looks like NASDAQ wants to go green, I think. I think it does.
Yeah, NASDAQ looks like it wants to. Like I said, the small cap definitely getting hit a little bit harder here than the other indices so far. The SPY and the Dow both down about 20 basis points. QQQ was down, almost 80 basis points earlier this morning, so pulling back up nicely. Bitcoin holding above 97K pretty well so far this morning. Gold right at that 2,900 handle so far. Seeing a little bit of a pullback here on WTI. It's still up 1.25% on the day, but dropped back below the 73 handle here. So we'll keep an eye on that. As we talked about the Mag 7, Apple, the big winner so far, although it has been pulling back from the highs of the day. Same thing with the NVIDIA pulling back from the highs of the day. A little bit, if we look at the indices of the Spider Select and see what we've got going on there.
Hearing that one of Russia's oil refineries, Saratov, has suspended operations for safety after a drone attacks. So
that's definitely a little concerning.
Dollar is still slipping here, 108.11 now. So if we get below the 108 handle, that could push the markets up here.
Absolutely, we could see a move to the upside. Trying to see what else across news here is coming in. Seeing the Travelers is expecting a 1.7 billion insured loss from the California wildfires. So we're starting to see some of these numbers pull in here.
Looks like Bitcoin is holding at 97,000. It seems to be right where it's at.
Steve, I did want to bring up, because you always ask me when things aren't moving well there. I was looking a little bit further into what's going on with Bitcoin. I will tell you, we're starting to see what's called the hash ribbon indicator, which is what miners are holding and what their hash rates are doing. And they are at a spot right now about where we saw when in October of 24, it made the move from 73 to 108. And what I mean there is the 30-day MA has moved past the 60-day MA. So we're seeing miners are increasing their hash rate. Miners usually increase hash rate as they believe the market or the move to the upside. So you often ask me those questions. You didn't today, but I thought I'd share that with you. So I am getting a little bit, wanted to let you know, because I know that you had been stepping away. You might want to start to keep your eye on that hash ribbon rate, because it has been a good indicator over the years for it. Miners know what they're doing in general. As you've talked about, you look at what their holdings are. This does both. It takes into account what their holdings of Bitcoin are, and we know most of them have been increasing that, so it's hard to use that. But what's more important to use, are they putting their money into the hash rate right now or not? And for those that don't know, Bitcoin miners don't use all of their computers every day. If Bitcoin's not at a price that is very profitable, sometimes they'll pull back to save energy. They also are partners in a lot of data centers with non-crypto mining companies, so they'll turn that computing power over to those data centers to be used for AI, quantum computing, and other things. So right now we're seeing that more of the Bitcoin miners are putting that into Bitcoin mining. That is usually preceded massive rallies. So just something to keep an eye on today. Steve, I want to take a look. Kellogg had earnings this morning and had sort of a mixed bag here, but was up about 4% earlier. Let's see what they're doing here now that the market has opened. They did have a nice little beat on their EPS of about 42 cents, and they were estimated to only come in at a quarter. They are up now 7%. So Kellogg, they are moving to the upside. I did have some takeaways from their earnings also. And my big one there was that they are expecting in 2025 organic sales to decline. And they are definitely concerned about the potential impact of Trump's proposed tariffs on Mexico and Canada. And the other part was that had me scared. Their volume fell 5.6%. But they offset it a little bit. Again, another company talked about their price mix increasing. You think we'll start to hear from Elizabeth Warren and those folks as more of these earnings reports seem to be pointing that out, that their product mix or how much they're charging for products is where they've gained a lot of these companies?
No, I think Elizabeth Warren is muted for a while. I think she is what we call in Latin persona non grata. And I think it's starting to hit. And I think she's realizing that she's not, she has no voice right now. And the more that she yells, the less people listening to her. So no, I don't think she has any gravitas, shall we say.
Yeah, I personally don't listen to anything she says, as you know, so I feel that way too. Just wanted to get your take on that, because what we tend to see is when earnings are at high multiples, a lot of times, especially on retail brands, we've seen, it be pointed as price gouging. So we'll see there. Steve, we're seeing the tick pick up nicely here. It's been staying. I've been watching here between 350 and 500 over the last few minutes.
I think I'm going to be right. I think that's what we're going to continue to push up, but slowly.
Yeah, it is reports now that all we've seen it do right now is what we've seen is a nice little consolidation on QQQ here, right about this 527.75 spot. So I like what I'm seeing here.
We're seeing reports now that Treasury Secretary Bessent will visit Kiev as Trump seeks minerals. He's going to go to Ukraine, so he wants a deal there.
Yeah, there is no doubt. He's made that clear. You want money. It's funny to see because, and I don't want to use the word funny when it comes to any war, so I'll change that. It's been interesting to watch because, he came out yesterday and made it very clear if Hamas does not release those hostages by Saturday that he will get involved. What that means, I don't know. But, you can see that rhetoric there. Well, we haven't seen that rhetoric really has been in the Ukraine, right? And the reason being is we've sort of heard from behind closed doors that he's angling to basically get all the minerals he can out of the Ukraine in return for giving money, which I don't have a problem with. You want our funds, give us something in return for those funds. We don't have to just give it to you.
Right.
You can sell us your minerals, your corn, your wheat, whatever it might be. If we need it, let's do that and let's use it that way.
There goes NVIDIA popping one high as the day. I had a feeling when you start to see these
window, like I said, I like the way it's consolidating up here. Any break above that 528.35 to a new high of the day would show that definite melt to the upside as you're talking. And it could lead not more than to a melt, but an actual breakout to the upside.
Could be a breakout here, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's more what I'm looking at is, a nice break above that 528.35 could lead to a breakout on QQQ. Not feeling the same way on SPY. That's the one that I think is looking more like it wants to melt up here. We see a little bit more. And what I'll point out here is what we see is, I'll just draw it. It's going to be easier. Here we have what is a little bit of a bearish flag to me. Usually if we can't break across this top and we see that it continues to consolidate, a lot of times the breakout out of this is going to be a pretty big breakout to the downside. So that's what I'm watching here on SPY. I've been watching it for a pullback to 603 here on a short-term chart like that for sure. Okay, let's see what we have here. Bitcoin can't hold for that 97K right now, Steve. Seems to be the struggle. Same thing on gold. 2,900 seems to be the handle it's sort of stuck at right now for both of those. And you can see we're stalling out across a lot of the commodities, right? WTI stalled out at the 73 also. So we are seeing that maybe we'll get that shift from the commodities into the stock market here today, and we continue to see that melt up that you're calling for as we're looking here. Take one last look at the pumpers here, see what's moving, if anything's breaking in. Not really. I'm not seeing anything really moving into our biggest movers in the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 1000, the ones that were up the most earlier.
Hearing reports now that the Houthi leader now is starting to resume attacks against Israel, saying our hands are on the trigger and we are ready to immediately escalate against the Israeli enemy if it returns to escalate against the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, that should get oil moving in the upward situation here where we get more there, and that concerns me because of what we've talked about with tweet analysis being so important, just like technical analysis right now, because a tweet from them means that we're going to see one come out of the White House pretty quickly as a response, and I would expect a strong and stern message from our president there. the Houthis are like the last ones left, right? I
Yeah.
mean, they better watch what they're doing. Okay, Steve, we are going to head out of here. You've called for a small melt up here on the Qs. I feel the same way here. I think we could see actually a breakout if we can get an upside move here. I think the market wants to move here in the day before Powell. I think tomorrow is going to be an interesting day to watch. On crypto here, Bitcoin, watch for any break above 97.5 for upside continuation. Any move below that, like 96.250, gives me downside to watch for here.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us at Quasar Markets. We got back at 11:30 with Jeremy Vreeland and Matthew Tuttle with the watch list. And then we're back at 1 o'clock with Prosper Trading. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.